My name is Allison, and I want to update you on our water resiliency on the block Fairfax project. This project is being overseen by great Germantown residents for economic alternatives and is being sponsored by the Philadelphia Office of Sustainability's Community Resilience and Environmental Justice Grant Program. My name is Allison Wright. I am a Fairfax resident along with my husband Ethan and my son Emil, and we have lived here for about 10 years. This project launched back in January, and we implemented this project with our community starting back in June, and this project will go from now and the grant will close in October. All right, so before we dive into our survey results, one of the things that I just want to define going forward in this project is what a water disruption is versus a water emergency. I will come back to this term a little bit later in the slideshow, but we would like to take a moment to define a water disruption as an event that happens, a short-term event within our building in which we can enact the tools that we have to be able to resolve this or to get the resources we need without having to reach out to external organizations. A water emergency is when we start to run out of the tools that we have available and we need to rely on external organizations such as the City of Philadelphia or Office of Emergency Management to be able to help us. And again, I'll come back to this later in the presentation. So our survey, we opened it after our last meeting on July 26th. The survey is still open if anyone's interested in taking it, but we did want to just put a cap on the information that we have and present what was shared with us by the residents. So we had 12 households participate in the survey. That included 24 residents. The age breakdown, we had five children that's under 18. We have 18 adults, and we have one person that is 65 and older. We did want to ask just a little bit about, resources within our building. So we asked about transportation. About 82% of the residents in the building do have access to a car, while we have our 18% who rely on public transit to get around. We also asked what type of water disruptions each household has experienced in the past year, and we broke that down into a planned water outage, an unplanned water outage, internal physical infrastructure, and supply contaminations. Now, in each of these categories, there are 4 bars, and that is for daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly. So if we looked, for example, at this planned water outage, and the first part of this graph right here, we can see that residents who responded to this were most impacted by a planned water outage on a monthly occurrence. And when we look at our unplanned water outage, we can see also again this happens for residents mostly on a monthly occurrence. And we start to see less responses as we go down towards supply contamination, which is something that we do experience, but it isn't as frequent. And basically, we just want to know the frequency in which people are experiencing these events. So as we move to our next slide, we see we asked how residents have prepared for a water disruption. For this question, people were allowed to pick more than one response if families have taken multiple steps to prepare. So the first one is that families are stocking up on bottled water. Some are purchasing, we have a couple people who purchased a water filtration device. We did have a number of people who currently don't have any plan buying designated water devices. We have someone who has created a toilet plan and who has created a household plan, which is excellent. Now, just to go back to the stocking up on bottled water. Um, we're glad that people have these supplies to prepare, but we do want to just highlight the fact of the cost of buying bottled water and how much bottled water people need for a day. So every person should have 2 gallons of water per day to take care of their basic needs. That's brushing, washing, cooking, and drinking. And so to stock up on bottled water, a case of water at the cheapest is $5, and 1 case of water would last 2 people 1 day. So when we start to think about that, we have some families in our building that have up to 4 people who live with them full time, and they may have more, can fluctuate. We think about the cost that's creeping up on this, and so this dependence on bottled water is something that we want to address and make sure that it is sustainable if we were to have a water outage over a longer period of time. We also asked people where they were receiving information for a water outage, and right now most people are dependent upon our landlord and property manager. We live in a fantastic community where we have really responsive landlords, but we also think about our other residents in Germantown who may not have the same responsiveness from their property manager or landlord. There are some legal obligations for them to report this, but again, we know that people don't always follow through with those obligations. Okay, so our amount in dollars. So this is the average amount in dollars that people spent on a water disruption. So we had a sliding scale from 0 to 100, and the average amount reported for families was about $50 on a water disruption. Our water disruptions in our building tend to be short, so this would be a response for maybe a day or two's worth of water. Our storage capacity, the average storage capacity that people believe that they have if we had a water disruption and they needed to fill up containers, is about 14 gallons. And one of the things that was most surprising to us was the amount of savings that people have set aside in case they needed to buy bottled water or purchase water filtration device in emergency, and that was 0. So what does this mean for us? Before I dive into this, I just want to say that this is a pilot study that will apply to other residents in Germantown. Hopefully we'll be able to move it and replicate it to other sites. So we have a lot of residents that come from a diversity of backgrounds, and so the results of this study are just a sample from our own community, but can vary from site to site or apartment building to apartment building. So the results of our survey, they indicate that we currently have a high dependence on external resources in communication and supplies for water disruption. We're really counting on information to be communicated to us from our landlord, and supplies for water disruption to come from our local resources that we have. And for those local resources, such as stores, to have stock of those supplies, such as commercially bought water, either bought preemptively before an emergency to serve our water needs. And again, we have to depend on the length and time and when the water disruption, when it is communicated to us, to come from the water department to our landlord to us. And our goal with this project is that we really want to shift the dependence from having external people or resources to us being able to be more independent within our building, to be more resilient, and to be able to act on something such as a water disruption, and to be able to depend upon a source that is affordable, is available to families within our network, so that we don't have to depend on commercially bought products to be able to serve our needs. So how do we envision this within our community? We have 3 parts that we envision happening in this, and the first one is education. We want to teach ourselves about safe water filtration, storage, and reuse. Hopefully our partnership with the Office of Emergency Management will be able to help fill in some of the areas that I'm unfamiliar with, or that we would need to know for a water disruption. Preparation, so being able to gather supplies before we have a water disruption, and our partnership. So we want to create a network within the Fairfax itself, within the neighbors and residents that we have here, and then to be able to have someone within our community that, should we have a water disruption, which we need to seek water, that we are able to do that. So we want to bring forward an idea that we have about creating common ground and common language in our level of preparedness for a water disruption, hopefully before it becomes a water emergency. It's one of the ideas that I had was a step level system, a level 1 through 5, where we would have a common understanding of how we need to prepare for a particular event. It's often communicated to us an event's going to happen, but we're not told exactly what we should do in response to that. So this diagram I created as a rough draft to illustrate just my thoughts on creating this common understanding. If we look at level 1 right here, and we have a planned water outage, and we're told we have a planned water outage, one of the ways that we should prepare is filling up tubs or filling up containers. We like to think that the water is going to come back on within a few hours, and sometimes it does, but sometimes it doesn't always make it drinkable. And so understanding that we could get the water back, but it might not be clean enough to drink, can help us prepare better. Then we have level 2, where we would have an unplanned water outage. This is where we would use an emergency backup until we could implement our network system if we have a water outage that lasts for more than 24 hours. When we move into level 3, this is when we activate our network, our community water network, and we would activate possibly like a grayscale collection, such as using rainwater or collecting water outside from another filtration system. When we move into level 4, that's when we move from water disruption to a serious water emergency. This is something that is where we have been without water possibly for multiple days or a week, and there needs to be an intervention with the city, with OEM or Office of Emergency Management. And this, like I said, is just a draft, an idea I have. I would love to work on developing this just so we all understand when we're told something, what's the best way to prepare for it. I want to let everyone know that we are having a workshop on September 7th for the Office of Emergency Management, which will be coming to do some education about how best to prepare for an emergency. Also, one of the things that I will be doing at the conclusion of this meeting is we will be voting on supplies that we will purchase as a building with this grant to help us with a water disruption. I will send out a Google poll to people to allow them to vote if you're not able to attend. If you have any questions or concerns, you can feel free to reach out to me, and I will be happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to speaking to you all soon. Bye. We would all know that we're at level 3